Well, good morning, everyone.
Good morning.
Beautiful weather, and we are inside for a little while, but maybe not too long. But at this time, I'll call the Nash County Commissioners Recess meeting back to order for May the 28th. Appreciate everyone adjusting earlier this morning due to some issues with probably an aging HVAC system at the administration building, possibly. I'm not sure what the problem was. But thank the staff for regrouping very quickly and getting us here, and hopefully everybody got the word that needed to get the word. It is customary, as we all know, to begin our meetings with a prayer by our city commissioner, and that will be Commissioner Marvin Arrington this morning. During this time, you're welcome to stand and join the commissioners in that prayer. You're welcome to use it for your own prayer or a moment of silence, or whatever you're led to do this morning. Commissioner Outlaw will lead us in the Pledge of Allegiance, which is the flag, American flag, is to my left, and had a great Memorial Day weekend, and I hope everybody remembered what the holiday was about. I'm sure we did. So at this time, I'll call on Commissioner Arrington to do the invocation for us.
Good morning, Nash County. Let us pray. Our Heavenly Father, we come here today and mainly to say thank you. And thank you to our nation that we just finished celebrating our Memorial Day celebration for all our veterans that have worked and fought to keep our democracy what it is today. And as we come today as elected officials to do the right things for Nash County, we celebrate all those who have held democracy in its highest esteem. We pray that, Jesus, you will continue to bless us with the strength and the knowledge to continue to guide our county in the right direction. We ask all these blessings in Jesus' name. Amen.
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 Would you face the flag and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Commissioners. I'm going to thank you on behalf of myself for agreeing to meet this morning. I think I'm the one that asked for this meeting. As I stated previously, I still have some concerns with the budget. Staff has done a great job, no question about that, and it's probably my own age and digging very deep in details on things that causes that concern. But either way, I want to make sure all of my Board of Commissioners fully understand what the budget has in it, what more important maybe what it doesn't have in it. And I'm going to rely on my board to get me to the point where I can agree to vote for this budget, quite frankly. I come with concerns enough that I'm not sure where I'm at with that yet, but I want to listen to everybody. I think the format for today is for, I'm going to turn it over to our manager, Stacy, in just a moment. And then I'd like to just go around each commissioner, let them discuss their feelings on the budget. And I'd like to go last and then just tell you what my concerns is, but I really want to hear what everybody else has got to say first. But with that said, I will turn it over to our manager this morning, who is quite visible. Please take it over, ma'am. Just got to wear my yellow coat today.
Good morning, everyone. As the chairman said, this is really just going to be an opportunity to have some open discussion about the budget. At this point in time, the budget is unchanged from when it was presented to you on the 20th. We have had some side discussions, and I do hope that we can get the chairman to the place to where he is comfortable with the budget that we have in front of us. It is a balanced budget. It is based on a tax rate of 63 cents. 63 cents still does not get everything that we need here in Nash County as far as capital and positions. We've made it clear that this year pay for public safety and being competitive in public safety has been a priority of ours, as well as child welfare. economic development, pay for all of our employees and our capital. So the budget, again, stands as it was when it was presented to you on May the 20th. And I hope that as we move through discussions and we can answer your questions, that we can all get to a place to where we're comfortable with it. And I will turn it back over to you.
That was rather quick, man.
I'm sorry.
That's all right. Well, with that said, do you normally go left or do you normally go right? I'm gonna go left at this time. Nobody answered the question. Commissioner Leggett, would you mind just in your own words discuss how you feel about this budget, any concerns that you may have, certainly any positive points that you may have, and if you don't mind going first.
I don't mind one bit.
Okay, I'll call on you this time. Thank you, ma'am.
Being as brief and direct as I can.
Oh, well,
How about
that's
that?
the way we can do that.
Okay.
The way we operate best at this board.
So as I said at the previous meeting, just would like to express my thanks for staff for their hard work on this. I know this is a heavy lift, and I appreciate all the research that y'all did to get to this point. A couple of things specifically that I had concerns about. First was, most of these are in the emergency services realm. The first was ambulance replacement. On our table here, it looked like 2 ambulances were requested, but only 1 was recommended. I wanted to find out, was that based on some kind of mileage table, or did that come from conversations with staff? I just, unless the county is in some kind of financial hardship, I just would like to see the county stay on an asset replacement plan, even if it means some type of financing. Do you want me to go through all this first, or you want to kind of respond?
I'll be glad to I'll be glad to respond as we go along. So the recommendation is a recommendation based on the capital that we have to work with, as far as the funding that we have to work with. So we do know that we do still need to replace 2 ambulances on an annual basis. We went back to staff as we continued to work through the budget to have a discussion about funding that second ambulance, and it was staff that requested the second QRV, quick response vehicle, above the second ambulance, just due to the current staffing situation. As they continue to plan for the future of our EMS services and being able to provide and respond to the citizens of the county, if they have to move to a different model than what we're using right now, which they're calling a regional model, they said having the second QRV would help them out more than having a second ambulance as far as staffing is concerned. We still do have that second ambulance on our priority for moving forward. We will be looking at some financing to see how we can get ourselves on a schedule so that it's not even a topic of conversation, hopefully, in future budgets. But at this point in time, the funding of the second QRV over the second ambulance was a staff ask of us.
Is the second QRV in the budget?
It is.
Okay. And will that QRV be added on as another station vehicle and manned vehicle, or is it only an extra?
I would have to get with the staff about that. I know that it is for their planning purposes moving forward. Whether they have an immediate plan to put a person in it or not, I'll have to ask and get that information for you.
All right, thank you for that. So just going on down to the pay for emergency services, I just would like us to continue to think outside the box as far as being able to staff, but mainly staff the emergency services, the EMS and Sheriff's Department. What can we do to make sure that those gaps are being filled on a daily basis? This is not just hiring additional people, but being able to staff it daily. Do we need to look at a different overtime rate, or I know we're already paying out that overtime in cash. It's not being paid in comp time. It's being actually paid out, which is good. But just want to think outside the box there. Also to touch on the public safety pay study, I know what was recommended was a kind of a blend of county-only funds. I know that our emergency services director was included in that. We did not have a recommended pay for the sheriff. So if we're going to have those numbers, use those numbers, then let's also use those same numbers to look at pay for the sheriff. See, but I don't believe that we discussed that at this point.
No, and the reason why the sheriff was not included is because he's an elected official, and in the past, that salary has been a decision of this board, generally separate and apart from the budget. So if that's a discussion that this board needs to have.
I feel like we'll need to have it at some point.
Okay.
That's all I have for now. I may have, as we discussed, there may be some other points that come up.
Okay.
But those are the primary questions that I had starting off.
Okay.
Commissioner Wilkins?
Didn't realize I'd get here so soon, but since we're going this way, I went over the budget in depth, and I am really in agreement with what the staff is suggesting. The sheriff's office, there was it was alluded to that we only increased the salaries of the first 5 levels up to lieutenant. Is that correct?
No, the budget includes all ranks for the sheriff's office.
But one commissioner suggested up to lieutenant, if I am correct.
You are
But-
correct that we discussed it, not just
Discussed
one
it, right.
commissioner, but
Okay.
many commissioners.
Well,
And where we began was giving raises to the lower levels in all of these departments.
Well-
But the recommended budget is everybody.
And that's what I want to recommend. I recommend and I suggest that we increase the pay of all of those in command staff. They've been there for years, so naturally their salaries are going to be more. Over the years, they've earned their raises, they've earned their cost of living raise. So yes, their salary is more, but to not include them in the pay increase, I think, would be wrong. And the sheriff's salary, I think we really need to consider that, what he is getting. If you add the 5% COLA to it, you know, I would be in agreement with the 3 to 5% raise on top of that. Same for, as Commissioner Leggett said, the emergency services director's salary was included in the study. I felt that the sheriff should too, but like she said, it's an elected official, but we need to discuss that and decide. And I'm grateful for the outside agency funding that the staff is suggesting, and that's all I have right now.
Thank you, Commissioner Wilkins. Commissioner Aaron?
Okay, even though I think we should have started with the center.
Understand?
But anyway, again, I think the staff done a good job putting the budget together. I guess the one concern, I know we've been focused on public safety. And, well, public safety has overtaken education as far as, I guess, our top priority now because of a lot of, issues around public safety. But I want us to be able to keep our public education budget in focus, that since the demerger, that we will hopefully still be able to fund the important programs that the county school has, and that we might be able to maintain the status that they have tried to bring us up to. Again, like I said, I'm okay pretty much with the budget. I'm open for the discussion about possibly the sheriff's salary being evaluated, and like I said, as we move forward, hopefully the budget, as I mentioned to the manager, that it will be able to maintain itself for the future things that we forecast in the future at our evaluation at 0.63 cents evaluation tax rate. And at the same time, I think our tax rate is going to be about one of the lowest in our surrounding counties with this proposed budget that she has. So at this time, I'm pretty much satisfied with the budget, unless some of the other commissions can convince me otherwise.
Thank you, Commissioner. Mr. Belfield?
The budget, in my review, other than I did have some questions on, let me get back to it. On funding outside agencies, did my sister's house request any funds this year?
No, sir.
They didn't.
No, sir.
Is there any reason why?
I don't know.
I noticed that Spalding Center was cut from 20 to 10, cut in half. There's a reason for that. They have some other avenues.
Donna, do you recall for Spalding Center, with their, I'm not even sure.
When Emily spoke to the commissioners at our work session, I believe they were looking at other funding sources. They were looking at a grant that they were
That's
getting.
right.
And so this was, they were looking at other funding sources.
Yes.
And thought this was what they should provide for them based on the committee.
Commissioner Belfield, did you hear that? They are receiving, I think it's close to $1 million grant. So they were looking at other funding
That's what I was
sources.
wondering if they had some other avenue resources.
They do.
available. Yeah, but then it takes care of that. Let me see, what was the Arts Council? We didn't recommend anything this time.
They didn't make a request, but we are continuing to work with them on drawing up an agreement to do a partnership with them. So they will have county support.
What agency?
Arts Council.
Arts Council,
And I can understand, I probably don't have nothing requested. I made nothing for United Way. They have a base where they usually meet their goal every year. So I understand that. That's it. Budget's fine, other than I would just had questions on funding of these outside agencies.
Thank you.
Just to remind the board, you know, we as a board made a decision moving forward that we would fund outside agencies. We discussed at one time not continue to fund them, and where we landed at was we would fund them at an amount, and that amount would be adjusted annually in accordance with what the cost of living index was. I'm not sure what exact one we picked to use, but then we turned it over to an in-house committee to make a recommendation of how that funding would go after they interviewed all of them. And I honestly, and I think we all did, thought that Emily did a great job presenting that, explaining it to us, and I hope moving forward that's the way this board will continue to operate, because it gives a chance for staff to analyze each one of them more thoroughly than we would be able to do as a board itself. So I'm pleased with the way it worked first year. Any more thoughts on that? Commissioner Outlaw?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I just would start off by saying that the county manager and whoever assisted in the preparation of the budget, and I know that was many, including Donna and probably Jonathan and Tia and others as well. But I've looked at a lot of these budgets over a number of years, and it's a very detailed budget. It covers everything very nicely. I think it's a good budget, and I'm in full support of this budget. I think we can do anything we want to do in terms of public safety additions, education additions. This board has the authority to do that. But if you do that, if you add money, then you may end up adding to your tax rate. So just keep in mind, if you want to add $1 million plus, then that's a penny, correct? If you want to reduce $1 million plus, then that'll reduce it to 62 cents. But I think the 63 cents rate is good. I think the allocations we've got for public safety are good, and they do cover all the way up through the command staff. Just a point on education, and some would probably differ with this thought, but we have not reduced education funding, at least in my memory. And that even includes the reduction of the average daily attendance in the public schools from over 15,000 to today a little over 11,000, somewhere around that range. So we're funding still at the level we were at. So I think we are taking good care of our public schools. I think we're taking good care of public safety with the study that you did or that you had done, and I think it nicely covers EMS and sheriff. We can't do everything unless we want to raise the tax rate, and if there's a majority that want to do that, then we'll do that. But I would not be supportive of doing anything to raise the tax rate above the 63 cents level. I think if you look around at the economy today, it's a burden on the middle class people, the people like us, and I just don't think we need to add to that burden. So I'm happy with the budget. I hope that's the budget we will adopt, and we'll move forward with it.
Thank you, Commissioner Outlaw.
Can I just add, because there's been a couple of mentions of funding for education, and as Commissioner Outlaw said, even though the daily average attendance has continued to decrease, we've kept our funding stable. But I also know that we like looking at those expenditure pie charts, and those three categories, human services, public safety, and education, have always been three areas that have kind of been neck and neck. But also understand with education, there's another $3.5 million in debt service that we pay out annually for education. So that's kind of separated in our pie chart when we look at that. So make sure you're also including those expenses when you're thinking about in total expenses for those three areas.
While you bring that up, the other debt service that we have, is it also isolated from the department? For instance, I'll take the courthouse or the jail addition, are those also isolated and wouldn't show up in that pie chart?
That's correct. So we have a slice of the pie for debt service, which is almost $7 million, but over 3.5 of that is for the for schools and community college.
Correct. Right. Commissioner Cole.
Thank you. I've looked at this budget time and time, and I think the manager has presented us with a good budget. I was hoping the tax rate could be less than what it is based on increased property values from the reval, but I don't see how we can do that. I mean, I've just come to reality that we're gonna it's gonna be 63 cents instead of 58 or 9 that I was hoping for at one time. But anyway, we got to do what we got to do as a county and to operate this county. I think this budget does do what we promised to do as far as our first responder pay. And I had a question about this one ambulance, and so staff has decided to buy a QRV instead of an ambulance. So if that's what they think is best, then we can live with that. But that does get us behind down the road in replacing these vehicles.
Well, again, in capital, our PAYGO capital, we have 2 QRVs and 1 ambulance, but we will continue to look at our financing for going ahead and getting that other ambulance. So
So we,
we won't get behind.
okay, all right, and I do think what's recommended as far as, and that's been my thing the whole time, our first responder pay, for the sheriff's office, EMS, I think this gets us competitive with our counterparts. You got to remember that they're also getting a 5% raise above the pay study recommendation, so, I support the budget that's presented.
Any other commissioner comments other than myself?
Chairman,
Commissioner Wilson.
before you go, if you would allow me just to say a few more things on the sheriff's agency, I would like to request that the sheriff come before this board, preferably at the June meeting. And I really want to know, I requested from our HR department, there are 6 deputies currently with the sheriff's department and 15 vacancies. But there are 11 senior deputies, 14 investigators, 12 lieutenants, and I just want to know what all of them are doing. Why can't they take up some of the slack if they're not already? Take up some of that slack where we are short deputies in the county. And also, why the large turnover? I have a concern that there are no blacks in command staff but one. I'm told there are none in investigations, none on the task force. I'm also told that the task force, the ones that are on the task force, receive an extra $20,000 a year for being on that task force. I would like that confirmed. And I just feel that that is something. Recently, I saw on social media a deputy that had only been with the sheriff's department for 3 years was promoted to detective. My question is, are there no persons of color in the sheriff's department in the deputy position that can be promoted, or why they are not promoted? Why are we, and I know highway patrolmen have the experience and whatnot, but I've also been told that highway patrolmen are bought in and they are promoted over deputies that are already there, that have been there a long time, and some of them have degrees. Why are they being looked over? I want all this answered by the sheriff, and I just want to know what his reasons are. It's more than the salary, I believe. I believe it's more than that. I believe it has to do with morale. I believe it has to do from no promoting from within, from what I can see. And I would like to see more black deputies in command positions. Thank you.
On all that said, Commissioner Wilkins, thinking about what you said, the sheriff is due to appear before us on June the 3rd about another matter. If there are any items that the Board of Commissioners wish to have the sheriff talk to us about, I would suggest you send those to the manager. Let her provide him, to be fair with him, a list ahead of time and answer any of his questions. Can we agree on doing it that way?
Yeah, we just need to keep in mind all the time when pay's not the only reason people leave.
That's what I just said.
And
It's
that's-
not the only reason.
You know, it's not pay all the time.
That was exactly what I said.
I know.
It's not so much to pay.
Well, in fairness to the sheriff, let's submit the questions that you may have or
I will.
concerns through the manager's office. Give it to him ahead of time, and he's due to come June the 3rd to appear before us anyway, so we could cover all of that at one time. That okay with the board?
I didn't get that.
Ms. Belfield, she had some concern about the sheriff's department.
Yeah.
The sheriff is due to come to us on June the 3rd anyway. He's scheduled to come. He asked to be on the agenda, and he will be on that agenda June the 3rd. If any commissioner has any concern about the sheriff's office, I would suggest you give the manager a list of those concerns ahead of time so the sheriff could have them ahead of time, in fairness to him. If we're going to ask questions, anybody like to be prepared. So that would be a proper way to do it, I think. Okay. Anything else? All right, I'm gonna pass out a couple of documents that I want to talk about if we could. I appreciate each commissioner telling how they felt about the budget, and I want to make sure everybody understands that I do, as I said in the beginning, think the staff has done a great job of putting this budget together. Also, I do have some concerns with it about some things and that I'd like to discuss this morning. A couple of things, the public safety pay study that we did, I think we initially all as a board talked about doing something for the lower levels. I was a champion of that and feel like that's what we should have done and still champion that idea today. The staff has recommended, and I've sat and talked with Mr. Boone and the manager several times about this, doing it throughout the ranks, and apparently I see this morning that all our board supports that. Seems to be, and that's just something that I've got to make up my mind about. The reason I have concern with that is I felt like our issues and all that I've heard about is the lower level people and not being able to fill positions. And if you're going to use pay to fill those positions, you got to make yourself stand out above basically everyone else. Of course, I, like a couple commissioners suggested, I'm not convinced at all that pay is our issue in public safety in some aspects of it. And I'm not going to be pointed this morning because that's not my nature to do that. It's just best to talk in broad terms. But I just totally and almost know that pay isn't the problem that we have with these filling these positions. It's other things, and it's things that this board can't fix, quite frankly. It's got to be fixed by those that are at the lead of these agencies. After hearing what the board had to say about supporting it, I'm going to think very long and hard because I really need to support this budget, and I'm going to do my best to get myself to that point. The concerns that I had, and Mr. Arrington mentioned the biggest one chart that I gave out is, if you look at this one right here, shows where we have come from and where we are as it relates to public safety. And the manager did mention the fact about education did have some debt service in it, but also other departments have debt service as well. So I'm not sure how relevant that statement is. I would have to go back and do some calculations to see that. But if you look at the chart at the top, you'll see in year 21, and this is something that I've spoke about in a very proud manner for this board each time I gave a state of the county, is how balanced we kept those three areas, which of course is education, public safety, in human services. Up until 21, they were almost always balanced to a T. And that, to me, showed a great budget and the fact that we looked after everything in the county. In 22, you saw a little bit of a trend towards in public safety, and I remember actually making a comment about this in that particular state of the county, that public safety had moved ahead at that point in time by a small amount, and because there was some concern in 2022, I felt like probably that was a positive thing. And if you follow those numbers right on up in 23, you'll see it distanced itself in public safety even more, and human services went up also, and schools went up some, not much. But then the next year, the same thing happened, and when you get in the recommended budget we got here before us today, look at the difference in the three entities. And human services, you know, which includes Department of Social Services, we spent a lot of money down there. I mean, we all know we've done that. It's money that we needed to spend. I would say it's almost money we had to spend. And it shows that we did spend money there because it's going up $2.2 million. And in just my roughly keeping up with what we are spending, that matches the number that I thought we had spent, Madam Manager, in additional personnel down there. But when you look at public safety, it's gone up to right at 38 million, and our schools is at 26 million. And that's where my deepest concern is with this budget is I've got to understand, and I hope y'all help me understand why it appears like money is leaving public safety, education going into public safety. I don't think that's actually the truth, but yet I don't know that we're keeping up with that. Commissioner Outlaw, the statement that you made about our funding is correct. We've always maintained the same thing as far as students dropping, but we've continued to put the same amount of funding in there. But we've also got to remember, as the manager pointed out to me a couple of Fridays ago, the money that followed those students that are returning back to Edgecombe County was not our money, it was money supplied from Edgecombe County. So it didn't change that number any, and we've continued to put the same amount in there, but our population is declining a small percentage each year even without that. But I really think we need to look at education if indeed we're going to adopt a budget on public safety like it is. And I sincerely believe we have done, pardon?
I'm sorry.
Oh, okay.
I'm trying to get you an answer for why it looks like it's gone down.
Well, we'll discuss it later. I mean, I don't have to have those answers today. But with the 38 million we got now in public safety, I think we have done what we have been asked to do. I think we've done it in a big way, quite frankly. And if the board chooses to adopt the budget as presented, I hope that it will settle the issues there. I'm not sure it will in both areas, quite frankly, because it doesn't seem to ever stop the request and the desire for more funding, but at some point we've got to start looking after everything, or we got to continue to look after everything. I do intend to spend some more time on the education issue. One question I had, Don, if you can answer, and I'm sure you can, the $4 million match that we got for the new school, is it currently in our budget?
No, it is not.
Okay. I do think we sincerely need to put it in the budget. And the reason I feel that way, board members, is when we got that grant, we sat there in that boardroom and we committed to make those funds available. And if it's not showing in our budget, I know you got an answer for it, but I don't know what your answer is going to be, but it needs to be in the budget somewhere. We're going to borrow those funds, I'm sure. But if we even have to take it out of fund balance at the present time, I think we need to show it in the budget, simply because we committed to show it in the budget. I don't want that Secretary of public instructions to look back, and I don't think she will. She's got other things that she's got to look after, but it's just the right thing to do to have that in there.
Did we commit as a board
Yes.
to put it in the budget?
We did, sir. We discussed it.
When? I don't recall.
I can't give you the date, but we discussed at the time we applied for the grant, we discussed to put the match
Yeah, I
in there.
know we applied for the grant.
Yes, sir.
But
We
I
made
don't
a
recall.
commitment to fund the match at the 10% that we funded it at, with the idea that it would make us more likely to get the grant, which indeed it did. But it's just a matter of taking it out of fund balance at the present time. And I will certainly listen to the people that know more about it than I do. And you want to say something bad, I'm gonna stop and let you
I
say.
do. I
Okay.
wanted to say that we do have $2 million that will be transferred over to the school reserve
Mm-hmm.
because it's from restricted sales tax, which will be used towards that match of
Right.
$1 million.
Okay.
So $2 million is budgeted to be transferred to our reserve. We went
Okay.
on.
And it will be in the budget.
It is in the budget. It's in the transfers,
Okay, all right.
in the section on transfers.
Well, if the board agrees, I'd like to see us show it all and show it where it can be seen, just in case somebody looks back at it, because we were on, we got a grant that, I'm gonna be careful how I say this, but we were very lucky to get the grant based on the economy in Nash County, quite frankly, and I just don't give anybody any reason to take a second look at that as personnel changes in public instructions moving forward. So if we could look at that, and would that not affect, I think, making this pie chart look a little bit better? Because that's just a thing to me that blares out at us that it appears like we're shifting money out of education into public safety, where I know we really aren't doing that, but if we could make it look better, I'm looking ways to do that. Y'all understand that? Okay, all right. That's one of my key concerns on that particular item there. Another concern I've got, I gave you an article that's in the Telegram today, and it talks about the Edgecombe County school budget moving forward. And granted, it is not an approved budget. It is the ask to the Edgecombe County Commissioners. But if you'll read that, what I certainly think, I know this board doesn't want to do, particularly in this demerger time, is we do not want to fall behind our adjoining counties as what we put in per student or any other way that we fund our public schools. So let's just ask the manager to continue monitoring, maybe even talk to the commissioner, the manager in Edgecombe County, and see what it's likely to end up at. And if we have to make adjustments to stay even, I just think we need to do that. It concerns me a little bit. I don't want to underfund. I don't want us funding less in Nash County than has been funded in Edgecombe County and other surrounding counties for our school system, because it's just not going to be a good read for us, quite frankly. And it's an important time for our school system. Now, we did agree, and one of the meetings I had with the manager, she had some money in there for another $500,000 in there for the school system. And both of us agreed that maybe we would just wait till the state got through with their budget. But I just feel like when they get through, we're gonna need to put some money in education. I don't know what that is, because we don't know what they're gonna do. But rather than have it sitting there earmarked, because once you put it in the budget, it's almost spent money. But I do want the board to fully understand that maybe by October or November, this staff may be back to us needing to put more money in education. So just please keep that in mind, that we could very well have to do that. And we must, Belfield.
I said back earlier when we started a demerger, anything, there are consequences for any decision that's made. And we made the decision to support demerger. So we have to live with the consequences.
We do.
And I don't agree with putting anything in the budget now. I mean, if we need to look at the general fund later on where there's a need, then we do it. I'm not going to support putting that in the budget.
Mr. Biff, I think you and I just said the same thing. Exactly. Or maybe you misunderstood what I said.
I did.
Okay. Well, we're saying the same thing, but what I want the board to understand is that more than likely there will be a need to put more money in there once we see what the state's going to do. And we're all concerned about public safety in the schools as well. It's just an item that we are not making a decision on with adopting this budget that we may have to revisit later.
And I think the manager covered that in her,
She did.
in her budget.
She
That's
did.
exactly
Yeah.
what she's going to do.
Right. But
Well,
it's
let's
important.
let's make sure the state does what it's supposed to do and fund it.
Well, we can only hope they do what
We don't
they're
need to
supposed
make
to.
up their slack, but we do what we need to do locally.
Right.
On local funding.
Exactly. I agree with you. But just keep that in the back of your mind that there's a good chance we'll have to put more funding in there later. Mr. Harrison? Commissioner Harrison, excuse me.
Well, along with what you stating, about, and what I stated about education. Well, I know the county manager probably has already budgeted it, but we transferred that $1.1 million and $1,000, whatever, from the American Rescue Fund to interest, and that if that, even though we done transferred over to the general fund, that be allocated for education, earmarked.
Well, that's a decision that the committee that you're on would make. Because we hadn't allocated all of that money. We only allocated a small portion of it to date.
Well, that's other option I was.
Okay. I think she probably heard you loud and clear. So she heard you, and that would come back to that ARP committee to make that decision, to make a recommendation to go to the board to make that decision.
Right. So the board just need to understand that with
Right.
the ARP committee, that the money that we received from the federal government, the $18 million that we received, we also drew interest on that money. So it's been at least $1 million that we drew interest from being in the bank. So, and what we've tried to do is allocate that money for needed funding areas within the county. So I mentioned that, as a concern, just like my concern about making sure that we fund public education, that we might consider that in our committee.
The only thing we need to keep in mind, Mr. Harris, as we talk about in all of those meetings, is that these are one-time funds, and we need to do our best to spend them on one-time occurrences, and not put them towards something that is a reoccurring expense, because the revenue won't be there the next time to do whatever it is we fund in education. It would need to be something capital-wise in education, is what. And we talk about that every meeting, so we both very well understand that. But your point's well taken. So at that point, when the state gets through, we'll just certainly look at that and see where we are. I think we all are very much supportive of our teachers in the school system, and we generally do something for the school system. We try to make sure it is directed at the teachers. We are currently at somewhere between, it's an average of somewhere between 11 and 12% supplement pay. I don't know that I fully understand what they've done with that, but we could continue to always look at that as well. Moving on down at a few more concerns that I had, and one of them got cleared up last week. Don, if you would repeat, but we always have tried to keep the last 5 years a $2 million fund for economic development in our fund balance designated for that. I didn't see that in here this time, but you explained it would be in there. Would you tell the board why it would be in there and why it's not presently showing up?
So we have a separate fund for economic development, it's our Fund 22. And when we sold the Middlesex Shell building, we have those funds available to transfer into that fund. Currently, I have not moved those funds into the budget's there to move the funds. They'll be moved before the end of the year. It's $2.6 million.
So we'll start off with $2 million a year. Okay. So she cleared that up very, very, very quickly when I brought that up this past Friday when we talked about it. I do want to point out, and I'm not sure everybody got that, but when you study what we've done for our employees over the last 7 years, which we've been very diligent in trying to give our employees COLA raises, which is cost of living raises, we know, and we have done every year either 3 or 5%. And if you look at it over a 7-year window, which I asked Donna to supply for me, which she did, we have given our employees COLA raises that have averaged, I believe the number is 4.23% over the last 7 years, or a total of about 29% COLA raises. I don't think you would find another organization that has been able to do that. So I do think this board has done great in supplying our employees with those COLA raises. I know they always appreciate it because I hear from many of them when we do that. The other concern that I have is capital. I think with the long list of capital needs that we have got, that we have identified, that we didn't put a lot of money in here, so full capital. So I'm going to ask the manager to explain, if you don't mind, how you explain to me how we're going to close that gap by a future funding borrowing possibly, to get more of those things done. She had a good answer for it, and I think the board needs to hear that answer.
Did I?
You did.
Well, I mean, so if you have your budget book with you, there was a list of items on the very last page that are items that are currently not funded with our PAYGO capital, but there are items that we're looking at for a financing package to put together. So staff is working with Davenport Public Financing, and there are some items there, and they're listed in the finance office that put this together. They were able to also identify for you the funding source. So you'll either see debt or grant, or a combination of both, and then of course the PAYGO. So we have those larger items on there listed for you so that we can continue to keep those in front of everyone. Make sure you know that we have not forgotten about them. These are items that need to be taken care of, but we will be putting together a financing bundle to address some of these larger items. Also, I think on an ongoing basis in the past, we had kind of set an amount of about 1.5 million for the PAYGO capital, and this year we're right over 2 million. That is a figure that is, just probably going to grow as we move forward. I think we were talking with Davenport Public Finance as far as stepping that up each year to get it to 2.5 million. We know that with the replacement of vehicles for our sheriff's office and our ambulances and emergency services and other just fleet needs throughout the county, that annual figure, along with just the regular wear and tear items, the HVAC replacements, controls, and different things that are needed for just ongoing capital, we need to grow that number from the 1.5 that we had kind of kept it at for a number of years to 2.5. And this year we're kind of hitting right there in the middle. I think we're right over 2 million for this year for what we have in our budgeted for our capital. But as far as those larger items, we will be coming to the board with a financing package to be able to move forward with some of those larger projects. Is that what I said before?
That's exactly what you said before.
Okay, good.
Do y'all have a timetable that when that may happen? Is it gonna be during during the upcoming year, mid-year, or where are we at with that?
We plan on continuing our discussions with them, and hopefully we'll be able to settle on putting it out to bid and everything right as we get into the new fiscal year.
Okay. So it will be done in the next fiscal year coming up?
Correct.
Okay, that's great. And that solves my issue with lack of capital funding in the current budget, because it's just something you gotta watch so you don't get behind. Looking back at my notes, Toccola talked about a while ago is actually an annual average of 4.14%, or a total of 29%. I think this is worth mentioning, but we all know where we stand on that, if you don't mind mentioning that.
Sure. So in the current budget, as we had our small budget work sessions, I came to the board and asked if we could have some discussions about raising the floor, raising the bottom hourly salary that Nash County pays for its employees. And we talked in those small budget meetings about $17 an hour. We continued to do our research and came back and said, you know, we had some feedback from some board members about $16 an hour. We continued to look into that item, and as you all know, I, kind of polled the board members to see where you all stood on that. And just so that everybody is clear, Nash County is setting their lowest hourly rate at $17 an hour, and that is budgeted in the current budget that's before you.
That's pretty much my concern, and my biggest concern again is education funding, capital funding, and the manager and her staff have given me good answers on how that will get better as we move forward. And I just want to say again, I think we have done a great amount of improvements in public safety. When you look at your pie chart of the numbers that I provided for you in percentages, which the percentages are now, will show up as 30% for public safety and 20% for education and 25% for human services. That gives me some heartburn, but if that's where we're at, that's where we're at, and the board seems to support that. Our only other issue or concern that I have, and it's not something that we really need to get into, I don't think, because it's a service that we get way more out of than what we actually put in it, is our fire tax. All of our departments, with the exception of one, chose to leave their rate the same, irregardless of what their total increase in assessed value is. I'm a little disappointed that they decided to do that, where I think they could have made some adjustments and helped the taxpayer some, but it's certainly not a battle that I'm willing to take with my two departments, or probably any of y'all. I'm not sure that you want to, but I am a little disappointed that turned out the way it turned out. But with that said, any questions from commissioners on what I have had to say and what my concerns are? And I will continue to work with the administrative staff and try to get to a point where I can vote for this budget. Questions?
Just to tag on to your comment about the fire departments, I
Yes,
know
ma'am.
there was a lot of fire departments that would have had to go up on their fire tax this year simply because of call volume. I know our population hasn't grown a lot,
Right.
but call volumes are increasing. Sheriff's Office, fire, and EMS, and we really haven't increased the number of departments or EMS units that we have. We're just putting more calls on them. So just food for thought.
Yeah, understood. Good point. Other comments? Yes, you're allowed to make comments, please do.
Well, I would just like to say thank you for everyone's support. It's been, we changed up this budget season, the way that we went through our calendar, and I feel like having those small budget work sessions up front worked really well for staff to kind of have a foundation to work from. So I really appreciate the additional time that the board members put into that. I would just like to say, as far as we've always liked looking at the pie chart. We've always liked looking at public safety, education, and human services and seeing that we were putting like amounts in those areas. But as things have changed and priorities have changed and costs have changed, I would just ask that you keep in mind that those aren't the only three areas that are being funded with the funds that we're working with. There are other areas that are being funded. So the ebb and flow of where funds are going, even though percentages are going down, doesn't necessarily mean that funds are being taken away from that area. So I was just trying to question that figure right there on last year for education, the 27 million. I wondered if that included money for the field house, because we did have that budgeted in our capital last year. So that figure right there could have included some money for the capital, the construction of the field house. But again,
I think indeed it did, because I looked at that.
Okay.
It did, and that was the reason for that.
Okay.
And I think when we make this adjustment we talked about here today, if the board agrees to that,
It'll go up.
it will go up
Sure.
and make it look some better here.
Sure. So we will work on that. We will work on how we show those figures and the actual costs that are going into those areas. But I would just ask that you please don't get too hung up on the percentages on that pie chart, because those are three of about 8 different areas that we classify on that pie chart. And I can make that chart look any way you want it to. So,
Well, I hope you mean by that you can make from direction of the board to make it look any way.
Exactly. But I just caution getting too hung up on the numbers, because these are not the only 3 areas that we're funding. There's other areas of government. Our economic development is going to go up and down depending on, factors in that area and others. But I just want to sincerely thank the board members for all of our interaction throughout this budget process. And I appreciate everyone's support.
And where we go from here, the board knows. On June the 3rd, we'll have a public hearing on our budget. Hopefully we'll get some comments from the public. We generally don't get many, but I think it would be nice to have some and we'd better understand. And then, of course, at the 17th of June, we will be in a position to adopt the budget wherever we are at that point. And I, as I said the last time, I greatly appreciate, on behalf of the board, the calendar that we got back in February, how this budget was going to work. The staff has stuck right to that calendar. We've hit every date exactly like it was projected we would hit. This meeting is an extra meeting that I will take responsibility for causing, but I think it's been a good time to sit down and us have a frank discussion as board members about it. And so, on behalf of the staff, thank y'all for getting us from where we were to where we are now, and reval itself complicating things quite a bit. I do feel guilty because I exposed my number on what I could live with for a tax rate too early, and the manager hadn't let me back up from it at all. 63 cents, but it's a fair number, I think, for our citizens all considered. I don't know how any citizen could not understand that the cost has gone up in the county. The expectations for services have certainly gone up and will continue to go up. And what we've got to do as a board is continue to work on economic development to continue to build our total assessed value, because that's where we get the most bang for the bucks. bringing in residential and more homes helps, but they bring in a severe cost with them. And net profit at the end of the day, after you educate kids and do all the other things that residential construction brings with it, you're not adding to your availability of revenue to spend on services near as much as you would be in economic development. So let's just continue to do what we've been doing and support the staff that's done a wonderful job on economic development and keep building that aspect of it up all we can. And any other commissioner have any comment they'd like to make?
I want to make one more.
Sure.
Just a question for staff. It was a citizen question that I had. I wanted to come back to. What counties were used for our public safety study?
You know, our expert's not here today. It was,
It's in the
your
information
study.
previously provided, right?
yeah.
Yeah.
Wilson, Franklin, Halifax, Johnston, Wake, Warren, Vance, Pitt. Franklin, Halifax, Johnston, Pitt, Vance, Wake, Wayne, Wilson.
Okay, thank you.
Edgecombe was not used. Other comments or questions? Mr. Aaron? Commissioner Aaron?
Yeah. Again, thank the staff for what they've done. And yes, our pie chart is basically citizens look at that. We look at that, and you know, our focus, along with economic development, is making sure that we have a sound school system. And also those three areas that we have, education, public safety, and human resources are areas that really is the network that keep our county focused on the human side of our community here. And we want to just make sure that, like I said, the numbers reflect what we're actually doing. And yes, I don't want to see education lose its forwardness. And also, yes, we know that public safety, EMS, Sheriff's Department, those areas have become more competitive with, because we have industry that has came in and being able to pay higher salaries, and sometimes the choice between going into a dangerous profession is different from going into a profession that's less dangerous. So we have all those things I know that we are competing with, but at the same time, we must stay focused on the things that are important, and I'm sure the county manager will continue to keep us on that good path. Again, thanks for the hard work.
Any other comments? I'm gonna close this up. What we're actually doing is recessing until the 30th at 6 o'clock, and that would be at the National Exchange for our legislative dinner. Madam Manager, I did get one asked this morning earlier, the legislative list, they requested to get that, if we could, by the end of the day tomorrow. And I'm sure that's possible, is it not?
Right, yeah, I'll follow up with Emily when we get back to the office and
Right.
get that out as soon as we can.
Yeah, we looked at everything that came in and went through it. I think the list is pretty final. You had a couple things you were checking on. I don't quite remember sitting every day what they were, but if we can get that by the end of the day tomorrow,
Yeah.
sometime more, I think that would be good to have going into Thursday afternoon.
So that would come out to all of us, right?
Correct.
And we've got confirmation on attendance by our legislators.
Yes.
We have confirmation on two.
Who are the two?
That would be Alan Chester and Lisa Barnes.
So Fontenot has not been able to confirm. I thought
His wife
was
His wife was supposed to let us
going to be a
know
little bit late.
Right.
that
That's
he
what
would be a little bit late,
Yeah.
and I hope that's where that stands. I intend to call her back and just check on that again, make sure he's still coming.
Mr. Chairman,
And is it anything that we're gonna want the representatives up in the legislature to push locally and statewide?
We have a list, and we'll be sending that out, so we will get that to you.
The reason I asked it now, do we, any discussion that we can have now before we get, as a board, before we get into meeting with the legislators?
Mr. Belfield, we were asked a month ago to supply staff with any concerns that we had or anything that we wanted on the list. Some commissioners provided items, some commissioners did not, and they have taken the list that was provided, and it was probably a total of 40 things. We tried to go in there with about 10, no more than 12 things, and a lot of them were similar, so they combined those. So if you have something that's on your mind, I would say let the manager know sometime within the next few hours so she can have that list to us tomorrow night, if you didn't think about doing that. Mr. Coleman?
I told the manager earlier, but I don't think I had told you and some of the rest of the board, but my wife had a trip planned for me leaving tomorrow, so I won't be there Thursday.
You did tell us that, I think.
Okay.
I like the way you said that.
Well, that's the truth.
My wife had I understand
You know how
better.
that
You understand better than you think. I said,
Chairman.
yes, ma'am.
My question is more so, I think, for staff or the manager. What is the procedure going forward, or how are we to arrive at a decision insofar as the sheriff's salary? Will that be done in closed session in June, or you want to hear from us individually? How is that going to take place? Two of us have inquired about it, so.
Is that, so, I mean, that's a board decision, so I'm going to kick that one to the chairman.
I do think it would be a closed session item, and we can discuss it in June.
Thank you.
Let me look at that and I'll get back with you.
Okay. I realize it has
It's
budgetary
budgetary, but it also has
consequences, but it
personnel
also is
consequences,
personnel.
so I'll look at
I will
it.
say in the past, that's what we've done, but I will wait for your answer, sir.
Look at it, get back into it.
Okay. All right, if there's no other business, I would entertain a motion to recess until June, May the 30th at 6 o'clock, and that would be at the National Exchange. Have a motion, Goods and Outlaw, second by Commissioner Wilkins. Questions on that motion? All in favor of the motion, let it be known by saying aye. Any opposed by a like sign? We stand recessed. Thank you all.